Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back, Ven Vamos podcast, and today we have El Pargo. Councilman, how did you get into fishing?
Oh man, I started fishing when I met my wife in high school, and her family, her dad is a man's man, and he loves outdoors, and I was able to learn at it from a very young age how to fish and how to camp and how to hike and do all that stuff
From el suegro.
from her suegro. Yeah.
That's important, man. You know, your family helping you grow both personally, professionally. Eso es una belleza. And you have how many? You have children. So how many daughters do you have?
I have two little girls, and I have another one on the way.
Hold up, just hold that one. We'll start off with the same thing like you said I have.
Pero me pongo un flow.
Sí, 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 sí,
Esto
sí,
a
sí,
momento I just get into it and
yeah.
It was blocking your face.
Thank you, thank you.
Is this good here, Sam? Or yeah,
It's
it's
the
good.
audio's good.
Okay.
I'm monitoring.
Dale, dale.
Okay.
You were telling me about your daughters. And you have one on the way.
So I have two little girls, and I have another girl on the way. She's due in May.
Girl, dad.
Girl, dad. I'm
Yeah.
proud. I'm proud.
I've always wanted just boys because I felt it was easier. Do you think it's harder raising girls over boys? Or?
You know, I actually had this conversation with my wife and actually with my father, and you know, I came down to the conclusion that I think everything happens for a reason, and if I would have had boys, I probably would have been a little too hard on them. Because I know what I was like
man
growing
had
up.
excellence.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And then with the girls, the girls have me wrapped around their fingers. So yeah.
Because I always see you with them on the boat, and I the Pargo. I don't even know where the Pargo thing came from, so I think we have to officially commemorate the story. But just so you guys know, the councilman Jesus, I call him Pargo. Porque es el Pago. He fishes a lot, but also I've been thinking of how I'm gonna spin this all together in this story. Because what's a Pago, right? It's a strong fish.
Yeah.
It's plentiful, but I don't think that Pagos like you are plentiful, especially in the city commission and the things that you've done. So this conversation, I want to talk to you a little bit about the Hialeah, like how you came to be in this position. What were you doing before? Where do you see the city going forward? And really, I just want to understand what motivates you.
Yeah.
Because I have met many elected officials, and to me, you are the most person that reminds me of me. Y yo le digo a la gente, you don't like politicians because you don't know them.
That's right.
Like when I ask you to help me, you know me, so you're gonna be like, oh, Nadir's bad. No, so what happened to all the good I've done before?
That's right.
So
That's right.
what's your why? Why Hialeah? Why did you want to be an elected official?
Oh, hey, Nadir, first and foremost, thank you for inviting me.
Yes, bro.
It's always a pleasure being with you. And, I started off working in the Florida legislature, right? That's how I got my start in politics. I worked for a good man called Senator Rene Garcia, who's a county commissioner today. And I was his aide over in the Florida Senate for a couple years, and that's what really sparked my interest in politics. And then aside from the politics, though, I gained a very big interest in actual public service, right? And Renee did a really good job and still does a great job in providing for his community and giving back and helping when no one's watching, right? And so I learned that from his office, and we've been able to pretty much transfer that to my office today in the Hialeah City Council. And so I started there, and after our time there, we did a lot of focus on health policy. Senator Garcia was a big advocate for Medicaid and different components that benefit our community, and so because of that, I was also able to springboard that to my healthcare career today, right?
Okay.
So I do two things, right? I'm an elected official, I'm council president for the city of Hialeah, and I also oversee subcontractor operations for a Medicaid managed care plan throughout the state of Florida.
Nice.
So I was able to do both because of where I started, right? And that was at an office in the city of Hialeah.
And you still see Senator Rene Garcia as a mentor? Do you do checks and balances? Is that almost like an apprentice master? Like, what's the guy from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Donatello?
Splinter.
Oh,
No, but you Donatello porque está capito, ¿me entiendes?
No, Rene. First and foremost, I see him as a brother, and he's done so much for me in my career that I'll never forget that. But now I guess it's a little different than when it was back then, right? Now I'm working with him, right,
Right.
as opposed to for him, and to me that is a great partnership to have, and he does a lot of good. I continue to learn from him every single day. So that's where we're at.
Yeah. And you grew up in Miami. I know your family's of Cuban descent. So how did you guys come to Miami?
Well, so funny story. So, everyone that sees me, they think I'm Cuban, right?
I just assumed.
No.
Did I just culturally assume?
Absolutely. And listen, and I'm from Hialeah, and so I grew up being Cuban, but so my father's Cuban, and my mother's actually Peruvian. Yeah. My mother's Peruvian, and so I had the best of both worlds, right? I love ceviche. I love everything that comes with Peru, and then I love my arroz con frijoles negro, and it's a great mix. Yeah.
Damn, Tundi, I just be like putting you as the poster child for Patria y Vida right now. But that's cool because it is very representative, like especially coming from a melting pot like Miami, Hialeah in particular. But Hialeah is the largest Cuban population in the United States. So it definitely, I think, is a different place than other places in the United States. I've had the pleasure of going to Arizona, California, Detroit. You cannot find a colada anywhere.
That's right. Yeah.
But in Hialeah, you can find one in every single esquina.
And the thing is, I know so much about my Cuban history, Cuban history in general. Again, it's because of where I'm from, right? In the city of Hialeah. It's unfortunate I don't know too much about my Peruvian background, but again, it's something that we're all very, very proud of. And I think at the end of the day, no matter if you live in Cuba or in Peru or somewhere in Europe, I think at the end of the day, everyone wants the same thing, right? And that's freedom, right? And so I think regardless of what my background is, I'm proud to be from Hialeah.
And I think, Tundi, that is such a great message. And here's the message that I resonated with you, is that we want the same thing. I tell everybody, especially because, a lot of people aren't into politics, and everybody sees politics as very Republican, very Democrat, right, left. And when I tell people, especially, people my age and my friends, I'm like, look, Republican and Democrat, they honestly want the same thing. We want the same thing. But how do we get there? One says more government, another says less government. One says more taxes, another says less taxes.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's
so
right.
How do you, in both jobs, because obviously I can imagine you've had disagreements with your fellow councilmen and also people at work. So how do you deal with individuals that have opposing views? Because I see you as somebody who can always be a uniter. Like in the commission and amongst your colleagues, I've seen where you might have two opposing views, but you've bridged that conflict or that disagreement. Mm-hmm. Do you always do that? Or are you someone that it's selective depending on what do we want to get out? Or you understand what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I think look, first and foremost, no matter where you're at, whether you're in government or you're in the private sector, you're always going to have politics. Right. Yeah. And so what I think is that people first and foremost want to be heard. Right. It doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter what the topic is. People normally want to be heard
and acknowledged, validated.
Right. Exactly. So that's number one. So it's important to hear both sides of the story here. Right. And then the second thing is, with politics, is always about compromising. Right? There's no way, unless you're some sort of a dictator or whatever the case is, where you do what you want and that's it.
It's in our lineage.
Right. But for the most part, and it's how I've always operated. There has to be a level of compromise, right? Yeah. Because you just can't get everything you want. It just doesn't exist. It doesn't, and it shouldn't work that way, right? So I think those two components I've always incorporated, no matter where I'm at, whether it's in City Hall in Hialeah or whether it's in our operations office in the Medicaid side. It's about hearing everyone out and finding a compromise.
Okay. What would you say is Hialeah? What is the identity of it? How do you see the place that you govern?
Hialeah to me is a very, very unique place. And I don't just say that because I was born and raised there and it's where I got married with my wife and it's where we're growing and raising our kids. But, Hialeah is so unique because, number one, of its location, right? But most importantly, the people that make it. And I'll tell you that for a long time, Hialeah, and still is today, Hialeah is a hardworking, working class community, right? They came to this city in Hialeah. They came to Hialeah from wherever they came from, but normally, from Cuba is
Right.
the biggest group that we have. But they came here looking for the American dream, right? And that American dream paints different strokes depending on who you are, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, it's the same dream. And so folks came here to Hialeah ready to build that. So they were doing, and they were willing to do whatever it took, right? Whether it was working at a factory, whether working at a gas station, at a restaurant.
Ocupa de Fidel.
Por culpa de Fidel. And they did all that to make sure that the generation that comes after them was way better off than they were. And so Hialeah is a community of sacrifices, right? And hardworking individuals. Now, one of the things that I take as an insult, right? A lot of times is when people then joke about Hialeah and how it is today, right? And I get it. Sometimes it's a little funny and whatever the case is, certain things that you see on Only in Dade or whatever.
Yeah.
But the
Or
problem,
the stereotype of almost like raggedy ghetto, like I hear what you're saying, and I'm not even gonna lie, even I have gone into that. You know what I'm saying, a cultural stigma,
Yes.
but it's like a micro.
It
Obviously,
is.
it's in when you look at it at large in the United States, nobody understands that when you talk to them.
Right.
But if you live here,
Correct.
It's like
correct.
if you know kind of thing.
Correct. And at the end of the day, Hialeah is the backbone of this county. Without Hialeah, this county doesn't succeed, right? And so I'm really proud of that. But one of the things now as a councilman, as an elected official for the city of Hialeah, that I've encountered a lot is, I've had my battles with developers, right? I've had my battles with folks that want to come into Hialeah thinking they could do whatever they want because they see Hialeah as the Wild West, right? And so that is a big problem, not just for me, but also for our mayor and for the majority of our council members. And so look, development is a good thing, right? Development is a good thing. Strategic development is a great thing.
The difference,
right?
And just real quick, it's so interesting, at least for me, seeing different elected officials in different places talk about development, because some really don't have the same view. Some are a little bit majavieto, like as long as you can get something into me, well, vamos a ver.
Right. So what happens is that what we want for a place like Hialeah is strategic development, right? We want to, for example, my vision, my goal has always been to push forward developments and initiatives that roll out our TODs, right? Our transit-oriented development districts, right?
So focused on addressing traffic concerns, addressing people's commutes, and just quality of life. But if you sit in traffic to get to your house for an hour every single day, that's 2 hours, and your quality of life is trash.
And look, and part of it, Miami-Dade County doesn't have the right infrastructure, right, to be able to have connectivity throughout what's called mass transit, trains, metro, or tri-rail. But what we can do in Hialeah, right, we have I think 3 or 4 metro station stops, right? We have 2 tri-rail stations, and so what I would like to do is continue to develop around that mass transit so that you can make it easier for folks to travel throughout Miami-Dade County without depending.
Hialeah is literally in the middle of the county,
and without depending on their private vehicle, right? So now you're doing 2 things. You're creating more housing, right? You're increasing density around these stations. You're reducing the dependency on your private vehicles, and you're increasing the dependency on public and mass transit, right? And that is my goal for the city of Hialeah.
So two points to this. Number one, you mentioned about building more housing. I imagine that's up and not out.
That is correct.
Right, because that's the only way. Like, we already have so much density. So many people are coming to Miami, whether it's legal, illegally, and a big portion of our Cuban community comes here. Tú sabes, lo cubano cruzando la frontera has been exponential in the last couple of years. So Miami's only going up in density, in population. You're focused on how to accommodate everybody that's coming into the city.
One thing to keep in mind is that, again, I mentioned strategic development is what we need. We know that there's a housing crisis throughout Miami-Dade County, but also we need to keep in mind, and it's what I tell many folks that come to the city of Hialeah that want to build, right? And I tell my colleagues on the council and everyone around us is that, we can't forget about the people that live in Hialeah today, right? It's a reality. Whenever we approve a new project, right, that goes up, we understand that they're paying a premium on the land and the cost of construction is high. that cost is passed down to the consumer, right? And so the consumer now has to pay a new record, right? A new high.
Every year the rent just keeps getting higher
Exactly.
and higher.
So for every new development, let's say, I don't know, let's say for a 1-1, it's $2,400 a month in Hialeah. A new development comes on. Now, that new rent is going to be $2,600 a month, right? What does the rest of the market do?
See,
They go up,
yeah.
right? And so what happens is that it's a reality now that whenever that happens, I get a knock on my door, right? Usually from an old lady, right? Telling me, Tundidor, the apartment that I was just living in for the last 15, 20 years just increased my rent to an additional $500 a month.
Yeah.
Where do I go? So those are realities, right? That people won't see out there, right? Developers won't see, folks outside of the city of Hialeah won't see, but it's something that I see, right?
Yeah.
And it's a reality that I face every single day, every single council meeting when we're making decisions on certain applications. And that is why I ended up sponsoring a resolution to develop Hialeah's first affordable and workforce housing task force, right? With the idea of developing Hialeah's first affordable and workforce housing program, right? In collaboration with the private sector.
See, time out. I got to name drop something. I recall when you did the Uber transportation partnership. So you have a history of doing these private government relationships, and I'm not gonna lie, very few elected officials I've ever seen do that.
Yeah.
De verdad, because it's not typically government says more government. You know what I mean? More
Right.
intrusion.
Right.
Government says more
Right.
government.
Right.
But
Right.
you're outsourcing these tasks to private companies. And I just remember the Uber one. I was like, yo, that's kind of cool. That's kind of lit. Because that was the only city that did it.
Yeah. It was with well, no. So yeah, we did a couple things. We did a partnership with Uber, and then also we had a councilwoman, Monica Perez, who launched an initiative with Freebie.
Yes.
Yeah. So look, at the end of the day, these private public partnerships are the future, right? We need to understand that some of these services are not sustainable, right? From a government perspective, there's just no way that they're sustainable. And number two, we shouldn't really be in that type of business, right? Government should be there as a safety net and to make sure that there's quality of life, right? I think I'm a big believer in that. Government shouldn't be involved in housing, right? Which is why I applaud our mayor, Steve Bobo, for transferring over all city housing buildings to our Hialeah Housing Authority, right? That authority is a separate entity that has its own director and its board of commissioners that oversee the housing activity within the city of Hialeah, right? And that's something that the city doesn't get a lot of credit for, right? Because we talk about affordable housing and workforce housing. Well, Hialeah has its own authority, right, which I just mentioned, the Housing Authority.
The task force that you just do.
Well, no. The Housing Authority, which is separate.
Gotcha.
That it's run by our director, Julio Ponce. And they service more than 11,000 residents.
That's a lot of people.
Right? And so...
And that's a lot of units. That's a lot of space,
if we want to talk about leading in affordability, I mean, Hialeah has been doing it for a very, very long time. But with that being said, we decided to take it even a step further, right? Because not all municipalities have an authority, right? Hialeah does. I believe Miami Beach does. The county does. Homestead, I believe, as well. But we are by far the biggest, second to only the county, and we service so many
Yeah, I get
members.
what you're saying. Like, obviously, the county is 26 municipalities.
Correct.
And if the second up is one municipality by
Correct.
itself, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
But even with all that, we decided to take it a step further and develop this task force so now we can have a program in collaboration with the private sector. So now, what is that going to look like? Right. Well, my vision is, again, we're not done yet because we're still trying to piece all these things together. But my vision would be probably threefold. Right. Number one, work with the school board, work with other governmental agencies or levels where we can partner together and identify resources that we can leverage, right, with the private sector to develop affordable workforce housing. That'd be one step. Okay. The second step, looking at what the county has, right, which is developing certain affordable and workforce housing criteria, right?
When you say workforce, because are you implying that the individuals that are in this program is because you also help them get jobs or place them in jobs, or they get this housing because they can prove that they are contributing X amount? You know, like that dynamic. How does that work?
So usually you determine affordability by what's called the average median income, so the AMI, right, and that goes off of the county. So you can say that, for example, 120% of the AMI usually is considered workforce.
Like 50,000,
Yeah, so
60,000,
yeah,
45,
it's
really middle class.
it's X amount of income on a yearly basis, and then you also factor in the number of people that live in the family.
right. Like if you have more dependents, if you have 2 kids,
Correct,
that
correct.
medium income could go a little higher. So now you have an assistance for, because my mom always complains que en este país tú tienes que ser muy pobre o muy rico para mantenerte.
That's right.
So this middle
Yeah.
never gets any help.
That's right. That's right. So yeah. So the idea is, again, what the state determines workforce and what the county determines workforce could be a little different. But normally, workforce housing would be anything between 100% to 140% of the AMI. But just to give you a rough idea of what that means, though, so 120% of the AMI for one person, for a 1-bedroom and 1-bath, right? That unit should be about $2,400 a month. That's 120% of workforce housing. Now, a lot of developers like to throw that term around because it sounds nice, right?
It sounds like
right?
sophisticated. I was like, bro, do I got it?
And
Am I?
sounds,
Yeah.
and it sounds like you're doing something, right? But in a place like Hialeah, 120% of the AMI doesn't do anything, right? Because that's actually above what the market rate is really in Hialeah. You see what I'm saying?
So they would buy this program if you go off AMI, would
Correct.
pay more.
Correct.
Okay.
So again,
You can't base it off those numbers then.
yeah, no, you can't. So that's why, we're trying to do a study, right, in Hialeah on what is the exact AMI that we should be targeting, right, to really make this program beneficial for the people that live in Hialeah. And then once we have that established, then we can start creating criteria. But for example, the county has certain criteria. If the developer wants to buy into the county program and wants to build, I don't know, 300 units, when only 150 units are allowed, well, then they have to give 20% of the units at a 100% AMI rent rate. You see what I'm saying?
Like guaranteed, we
Yeah.
need these amount of people by our mandate that have to meet this criteria in order for you to sign off on more units.
Exactly. So if you want
It's like a
double,
guarantor.
if you want double density, we'll give you the double density.
But now you have to meet this criteria.
Exactly.
And very likely, just from hearing that, if I'm a developer, I'm like, nah, but I'm trying to make this super bougie, and I gotta tax every single unit because I want to make my millions.
Yeah.
So that's the conflict of interest there.
Well, yeah, that would be an issue that or something that the developer has to decide whether or not it makes sense for them, right? And if it doesn't make sense, then they just don't join the program and they go through the regular process, right?
But I can imagine the regular process if
Well, the regular process won't give you the incentives that the affordable housing program would.
and that's where the private
Correct. You see? Yeah.
and that's where the private comes into, because I get you, like you are essentially outsourcing that placement or that requirement. Because how do you as a government say, yo, we need to make this many units at this price because we know this is the price that our community can afford.
Correct.
But you can't go to the company and be like, you better do it or we're going to tax you more, or you can't also do that either. So it's
because that's not the relationship you want with the private sector, right? I mean, and it's not government's role to do that. But I want to be able to really stress on that, right? Because you have a lot of people, a lot of folks that like to criticize, right?
Stakeholders.
Yeah, the stakeholders are. Listen, I even know some people personally on the council, but that they don't understand, right? They don't know really sometimes what they're talking about, but they don't understand why these types of partnerships are important. Look, it's key to note, right, that back in 1999, I believe it was, the federal government said, "Hey, we're done building public housing." Right?
No sirve.
No sirve because it's not sustainable, right? It's not sustainable because then what? 40 years later, you got to make renovations. Where are you going to pull the money out of, right? So you're constantly having to subsidize from our taxes, right? So when that happened, now the only way to really start having true affordable or workforce housing are partnerships with the private sector. But the private sector is not going to get involved unless there's a win for them.
Tú le das lo tuyo. Me tienes que tocar.
So
Tú I gotta do these Cuban.
no, I get it. But so that's sometimes a struggle. So it's an easy soundbite to say, oh, the city is working with the private sector, with the developers, they're giving anything away. No, the truth is that if we don't work with the private sector, then we don't get anything done as far as workforce and affordable housing.
One side says, we want affordable housing, so make them get it, make it affordable. You're saying we need to play the game of it. Everybody got to win here. You want this, they got to win too, but this is the requirement in order to win.
Correct.
And you set these standards. Man, and I feel like many people just don't understand how this even goes. So I really appreciate your expertise on how to address these issues, because every elected official is going to throw that this is a top issue, the immigration is going to be a top issue, and that's on their platform. But nadie te va a sentar y decir that this is how I'm going to do it. Here's my track record of doing it.
And then if you don't do anything about it, right? What happens is with the influx of people that are coming into this county, into Hialeah, you're going to start seeing more of a black market commodity, right? And those are things like
Illegal.
RVs, right?
Ah, you got me. Perfect.
RVs, those are things like, more illegal efficiencies,
Yeah.
bad places to have people live in, right? Because there's a need. Also, you got to understand, the people that are coming in to this community today, they don't have the money or the resources to pay for the new development that we're building tomorrow. So what they do is they resort to black market commodities.
All right. I'm really happy that you brought this up, because I've been so excited to talk to you about this, because I'm not gonna lie, I interviewed Mario, who's a candidate to be sheriff, but you were the sheriff in town. Tundi said, if you have an illegal rental, we are coming after you. What is good? No, please. This cannot happen. Okay. I want to give a quick anecdote as to how I understand it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you guys right now, I might be educated on some things. I am not educated on this. So don't, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Okay. La cosa está mala. La renta está muy alta. So people on their lots, right? Like, it's their property. They put an illegal efficiency in the form of an RV. I use Airbnb, so I have paid on Airbnb to be in somebody's RV because it was convenient, it was easy, it was accessible, and I didn't mind sleeping in someone's RV for a day. Pero that's rental income, because I can understand the city side of it.
Yeah.
You essentially were like, en mi ciudad esto no pasa. Right?
That's correct.
Okay. Why did you do that?
Well, look. So first and foremost, if you allow a bad thing, right, to go on for too long, it becomes a bigger problem at the end, right? What you want to do is you want to capture these things early on in its early stages, right? Speaking politically, if you were to allow these RVs to continue operating, then they become like the efficiency problem that we have today in Hialeah, which is, it's a topic, it's become a political issue, a political topic.
And it's
not just Hialeah, and it's not just Hialeah, right? It's Miami, but they've grown. They've grown, and so if
it's the only way to live at this point.
Right. So then if you try to do something about that now, it becomes a political problem, right? So now we see this new phenomena now of RVs. I guess folks are being tapped out with the efficiencies. So now they want to expand their business model, and now they go to RVs. We stopped it. Well, we're trying to stop it because we didn't want it to get out of hand. Even though now, I mean, I don't know if you saw the news just the other day. There was a guy that they caught that was fully armed in an RV in Hialeah, right? Had a bunch of weapons in his RV. So it's become a problem. Now, some of the reasons why we decided to stop it. Number one, you don't know who's living in those RVs, right?
It's a public safety issue.
That's number one, right? Number two, you're disrupting the quality of life that our residents have invested in, have been a part of for the last 50, 60 years, right? Number three, you're tapping illegally into infrastructure that you haven't paid money for, right?
Because if you have more people living, you're drawing an income on that property. At that point, your property tax should be supposedly increase.
Correct. So you got to understand, a single family lot, right? Single family home has infrastructure meant for only one family.
Like the electricity use, the water use.
The sewer, And so if you start illegally tapping into that, let's say the sewer, and now you have multiple families, right? Multiple RVs out there. There's been some instances in Hialeah. You're putting more and more pressure on that infrastructure that can't sustain that, right? So you risk a public safety issue, right? You risk now some sort of backup and then contamination of sewer water, et cetera, et cetera. So that is probably one of the biggest issues that we've seen. Now, at the end of the day, listen, if I'm a homeowner in Hialeah, I spent, me personally, when I bought my house in 2016, I spent $300,000 on my house. I spent a lot of money putting into it, right, fixing it up, making it the way that we want, right, so we can enjoy our backyard.
And paying your property taxes.
We're paying our property taxes. We want to create an environment where we can raise our girls. How dare someone, my back neighbor, after me 20 years investing in my property, decide to develop an illegal trailer park right behind my house? That's not what I signed up for. That's not what many folks signed up for.
It's going to affect your quality of life and everybody around them.
Exactly.
And especially if you are Airbnb-ing, like 50 new people coming in and out of this neighborhood at some point. I'd go out.
And I had, listen, I had the haters, right? I had the haters come out, insultarme, hablar más de mí, hablar más del alcalde, hablar más de nosotros, and we took it, right? We took it because we still knew that it was the right thing to do. Now, it's not an idea that I had one day to wake up in the morning and say, oh, let me do this. No. We gathered data, and we made sure that we were data-driven in the decisions that we make as policymakers. I think that's extremely important. So what did I do? How did I gather that data?
Yeah.
I started having these mini town halls throughout the city of Hialeah, right? Mm-hmm. And I would focus on really maybe 2 precincts at a time, right? I would invite the folks there. So in some cases, we'd have probably, 85 people come out. In other cases, we'd have on the low end 20 people come out, right? But again, we're focusing only on 1 or 2 precincts,
and
right?
Very specific.
They're very specific of the areas,
yeah.
right? And so we would present, crime stats, we would present violation stats, again, specific to those areas. And I did that because the problems of the West aren't the problems of the East, right? So you need to keep them separate to really understand what the issues are. Now, regardless of where they're at geographically, at the end of the day, one thing was constant. What are you going to do about the illegal RVs?
Like across all the districts, people were telling you, oye, me tiene que resolver esto.
Exactly.
Because this is too much.
Exactly. Maybe
this is too much.
Maybe flooding was a bigger issue on the east and the west, and then maybe on the west side they're dealing with more chickens and los gallos y todo mundo. But the one thing that remained constant, the common denominator, were the RVs. And that's when I went back. Mayor and I spoke about it, and we decided finally to go ahead and push forward this ordinance. And again, this ordinance at the end of the day does a couple things.
Right. Number
one, it was already illegal to have people living in the trailer on a single family home lot. That was already illegal, right?
So if the lot was zoned for single, is it zoned? So here's another question: Is it zoned for multifamily or single family? And would there be a difference if it was multifamily?
Yeah, you can't have RVs in any type of property unless it's zoned trailer park.
It's zoned as trailer.
Correct. So and right now we only have, I think, one trailer park in Hialeah. But that's always been the law, right? It's always been against the law to have a trailer where you live in. All right. So what this ordinance does, though, is it pretty much equips, right, the city with additional tools to continue to enforce that, right? Because right now, if a code inspector is walking down the street and they see an RV, right? And they might have heard stories that RV in that particular house has someone living in it. Well, if the city doesn't have actual proof, then the city can't act on it, right?
So they would need to collect info.
Exactly. And the city can't, just jump the fence or take a picture over the fence. That's not allowed because property owners have rights, right? So that can't happen. So now what this ordinance does, it says the following. It says, number one, a property can only have one RV. In many instances, we've seen properties that have 2, 3, 4, 5 RVs, right? And we're talking about small lots, Nadir, right? We're talking about lots that are 6,000 square feet, 7,000 square feet, with multiple
and next
RVs.
To other lots, and next to other, like claro, you're in the middle of a suburban neighborhood.
So how do you, so that's number one, right? We're limiting it to one. Second thing we're doing is we're stating that if you're going to have an RV, you need to have some sort of registration with the city. No cost, right? And you have to sign an attestation.
Just let us know about it.
Let us know about the RV, and the county does that, right? So it's not anything new, but let us know that you have the RV, and then also sign an attestation stating that you will not rent it out to anyone, right?
So now, if you do, right, and you told me you wasn't gonna do it, te voy a meter esta multa.
Así mismo. The third thing it does is it determines where you place it. Now, where you place the RV on the property. Now, again, you had mainly folks that don't live in the city of Hialeah, right? reach out to me via social media, IG, whatever the case is. How are you going to tell us where to place our RV? Well, okay, well, there's a reason why, right? Because RVs are meant for recreational purposes, recreational uses, right? So you have an RV, you have your trailer. You know, I like camping, right? My wife's family loves camping, so they have trailers down in the Keys, right? So if you're going to have an RV, it's meant for recreational uses. So if you're going to park an RV all the way in the backyard, right, where no one sees, chances are you're not going to use it for recreational uses, right? You're gonna probably rent it out
or storage or whatever you get to see, but it's not.
yeah.
I get what you're saying.
But we want to steer clear from the rental, right? If you want to use the storage, whatever it is, what it is. But we don't want people living in there because it's not safe. So what we're saying is you could either park it on the side of the house, parallel to the house, or
I get what you're saying. Like, here's the sidewalk, and you park it like on the side of the house.
well, on the side of the house, or in the front of the house, but perpendicular to the right of way, so perpendicular to the sidewalk.
Right, like it has to literally be not obstructing the sidewalk, not
Correct.
obstructing your driveway.
And we don't want it parallel to the house because then it's a safety issue, right? Anyone can sneak back there, and from the street side you can't see, and so those are really the biggest changes, Nadir. And again, I think it's not only fair, but it's the right thing to do. Look, I have people criticize
but even
me.
That's a compromise because you're not telling them that you can't have.
You're not
RVs.
telling them.
We're just telling you, dude, like, for this safety concern, we need to know why your RV's not why, but like that you have an RV. Because if we don't even know you had an RV and somebody with a bunch of guns comes in, we don't even know what's going on. Really, you have to be aware of who's staying in your community.
Look, and at the end of the day, look, when we posted a reel on Instagram, it was the first reel that we did on the RVs, and we ended up posting it, and I'll tell you that reel went viral. I'm telling you right now, it's something that we never experienced before. On average, for every reel that we'd have a couple thousand views and stuff like that. 8,000, 9,000, 10,000. But when we posted this reel, we ended up having, I think it was about 106,000 views. Thousands of likes, thousands of shares, and then within the comments, more than the majority were in favor, but you still had people criticize, right? And so you would have people say things like, "It's Hialeah, it doesn't matter," right?
Going back to that brand,
right.
that identity. Yeah.
It's Hialeah, it's the Wild West.
That's what that could happen. Yeah, we don't care. Yeah,
exactly. And so to me, it that really did bother me. And I remember, I said it on the news once at a press conference. I said, Hialeah, we understand that we're not Miami Lakes. We're not Coral Gables. We're not Pinecrest, right? We're not Doral. We understand all that. But Hialeah is a hardworking community that deserves so much more than what people think it deserves, right?
And also has the most parks in Miami-Dade County, too.
Of course. And some of the best parks for a long time. Our city led the nation in our parks and recreations, So a lot of things to be proud of. So I refuse to give into that narrative that Hialeah is a working class community, that it doesn't deserve the same things, the same American dream that Coral Gables has. I refuse that. Like I mentioned earlier, everyone came here for the same American dream, just different strokes, right? Yeah. And so for someone who came here 50 years ago and invested in our community, maintain su casita linda, ahorrarse su kilito para mantenerla linda, que a esta altura en su vida have to now deal with an illegal trailer park next door? No. I refuse to do that. And if that costs me an election, then so be it. But at least I know that I did the right thing.
Yo, boof. No, but I love that you can see your passion, man, and that's who I want representing me. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of elected officials that would have just sold it off, like, right. I just or wouldn't have had the energy. And this is kind of, I want to steer the conversation into where is your motivator? Because there's no school on how to be a politician.
Right.
There is no course, even though they say there is.
Right.
But so what? Like, why do you find yourself always showing up? Because you really could just go to the commission meeting. Yeah, that's what you're responsible for.
Right.
I remember in North Miami Beach they had the whole thing that the guy never came. Right.
Yeah.
So all you have to do is just show up.
That's right. Yeah.
And you don't really lose your job and just mantener la cosa. So where do you find the motivation to go above and beyond for your city? Like, why do you put on so much? Like, as young Jeezy says.
Nadir, it's funny. I'm smiling so hard right now because I had the same conversation with my wife, right? And my wife is like, she's my rock, and she means everything to me. But the question was, being a council member is a part-time job. Why do I put so much into it, right? Why do I treat this like a full-time job, right? And sometimes I ask myself that question a lot too, right? But with all the issues and the headaches and the fighting and the pushback that I've experienced as an elected official in Hialeah, I can tell you I love public service too much, man, to just treat it like a part-time job.
I actually enjoy helping people.
I enjoy getting calls in our office and people ask me to go to their house so I can look at something or determine if they can move the water meter or they have an issue with a violation, or that they had an issue with a permit or whatever the case is. It drives me, right? And so it makes all the headaches that I deal with not a big deal, right? And so I tell you, it has caused like some disruption, like with for example, even work, right? With my real job, a politics, public service does take time away from the family. But I think if you have a supporting foundation, right? If back home you're good and you got a rock back home, I think it enables you to put in the work that you're supposed to put in, right? And look, in a place like Hialeah, where for a long time it was on a path towards a direction that was somewhat progressive, but not necessarily the best path. I think there's a lot of room for improvement.
When you say progressive, are you saying it in a like Republican Democrat?
No,
or you mean like progress.
No,
way?
I mean progress, like our city slogan, right? The
Yeah,
city of progress.
progress.
So it was in a path of progress, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think it was the level that it could have been at, right? So I come in, you get a couple other younger council members that come in as well. You get a new mayor, right? Everyone with the same drive, and so now you're starting to see all the improvement and the enhancements that we're seeing within the city of Hialeah, right? And that's something that really really motivates me. So I have many roles in my life, and one of them is doing operations for a Medicaid plan. The most important for me is being a husband and a father, right? And the last role that I have is being an elected official. And I can tell you it's been very difficult to manage all of them, right? Especially when you're very passionate about all of them, right? Family always comes first, but I could tell you that public service is a very demanding industry, right? And it's something that can take away not just from your family, but also from your work, from your private side, from the career. But I tell you, in spite of all the headaches and all the sacrifices that I have to make to make all the roles work, right? Whether it's working a little later at night or working throughout the weekend, I can tell you that public service has been so fulfilling for me, right? Public service is something that I've always dreamed of ever since I worked in the legislature for Senator Garcia, and to be able to work today to make decisions that are going to benefit hundreds of thousands of people within our community, that just means the world to me. And if I can show my girls that just because something has been wrong for a long time,
don't make it right.
It doesn't make it right. And even they can have the power and the strength to make it right.
Do you think that this sentiment in you was something that you've always had, or do you think that you learned to feel this way? Or do you know what I'm trying to say? It's almost like a nature versus nurture question. Like, do you think that you just always had it in you to be this person? Or was there some event in your life that you point to and say, this is where I draw that inspiration from?
Well, I grew up with my mom, and my mom always taught me to be very kind, right? And I grew up, like and now, my mom was a single mom, and so she worked late. She worked two jobs throughout the week. So when I came home from school, I didn't have much to do but to be out in the street and hanging out with my friends and stuff like that. So I picked up certain things growing up that that kind of made me a little colder, a little stronger, but my mother never failed to teach me how to be kind. And so I think my compassion today that I have for our residents and what I do, I think ultimately it stems from that. And at the end of the day, listen, living in a house filled with girls, right? Actually helps out with that as well. But my mom has been probably one of the biggest inspirations for me.
So do you think this is gonna be your last child, or you think you're gonna get the full basketball team,
No,
the full starting lineup?
no. I think after with 3 girls, I think we're closing up shop.
Yeah, yeah,
And we're shutting down. And listen, look, power to all the people that have 4, 5, 6, 7 kids. I mean, that's great. Having a big family is great. I like to do things very, very not controlled, right? But I think with 3 girls is the right amount of kids to give them your full attention, right? In my opinion, if I start having more and more kids, that attention has to kind of dilute, right? Because you got to spread it out.
And they're each older, different ages. Like,
Exactly. At least now we'll have them all relatively close. My oldest is 3, Sienna, and then my youngest is going to be born now in May. So,
what your wife was pregnant when you ran for office, no? Or when...
So it's funny you mentioned that. So my wife and I, my wife wasn't pregnant when I ran for office, right? In 2019, she was not pregnant. When I get elected in November of 2019, in 2020, COVID comes, right? COVID hits and all that, right? In 2020, she gets pregnant, right? So in January of 2021, my oldest is born, right? So it's funny because I say that for this reason. Hialeah has seen my family grow since I've been in office, right?
Okay.
So starting in December of 2020, we sent out our first holiday mailer, right? So it was my wife and I, and she had the belly, right? In December of 2021,
there's another one.
it was my wife and I, Sienna, and then she had another belly.
I get what you're saying. That
right.
every picture it gets bigger.
And so I'd be at the Publix, or I'd be at un comedor or something, with our residents and people that maybe I've never seen or I haven't had the opportunity to sit and talk.
But no,
they'll tell me, "Oye, ¿cómo están las niñas?" And I'm like, "Which
one?"
And I'll go to people's homes sometimes, and I'll see my mailer up on their fridge, right? And so my family has grown with the community, and vice versa. So it's something very, very important to me.
What would you say is your fondest memory as of public service that you've done in your capacity?
Oh man, it's just we. No por nada, Nadir, but we do a lot, right? And I put a lot of pressure on my team, and to make sure that not only the quality of service that we give to our constituents is always at the highest level, but to make sure that we accomplish all the things that we want to get done, right? And so I look at what I do twofold, right? Number one, from a policy perspective, right? And then number two, from a community perspective, right? We always do food drives. We always raise money to give low-income kids gifts during Christmas, or the other day we were able to sponsor bicycles for kids who have achieved perfect attendance, right? So we do two things. So I have stories and victories from both sides, but I would tell you in general from the policy side, every time we have a huge win that betters the city, betters the quality of life, right? Or generates more revenue for the city of Hialeah, that's always a huge win for me that I'll never forget, right? I've sponsored ordinances where we've developed new methods of revenue for the city. And as a matter of fact, yesterday or a couple of days ago, I was looking at certain revenue from those sources that I've implemented, right? And last year alone, we generated $3 million. So that's something that
you're growing it. You're growing the coffers that you're actually contributing, leaving a print on.
Exactly, and that's from a financial policy perspective, and again from the community side, whatever we could do for our kids, for our residents. I mean, it's always a win for me. I don't keep track of these things. I gotta look back at social media, but
¿Dónde está la mejor croqueta en Hialeah?
La mejor croqueta en Hialeah están en Trigo Café. Trigo Café en la 49. It's because they get their croquetas from Isla Canaria.
Dude, honestly, it's so hard to beat.
It's hard to beat.
It's so soft.
It's hard to beat. It's hard to
soft
beat. And I'll tell you that there's other places that have some good croquetas too. But I
just can't be dry.
Yeah.
I'm not somebody that puts the limon on it.
Yeah.
But if I have to, that's already like.
Yeah. I don't do that. I don't put limon either. I like it.
On.
I like it as it is if it's good. But I'll tell you, Trigo Café is very special because not only is la croqueta phenomenal, but then you could walk out with a trigo shake. Right.
Oh, trigo, batido de trigo.
Batido de trigo.
But not batido mamey. That's not your go-to.
I mean, I love mamey. I love trigo. I love todo mundo. But but El Trigo is probably one of the go-tos
your-
there,
that's your
right?
style.
Yeah. And so it's nothing better than to go over there, ask for a couple croquetas, right, and then get yourself, top it off with a trigo shake with some whipped cream, right?
3,000 calories.
No,
and-
all day, But now, if you ask me, where do they make the best rabo encendido, right? Oxtail. I have to say it's a place, it's a little hidden gem, cash only, right? Called
but-
La Viña de Aragón.
And that's Cuban, not like
That's
because you know how Jamaicans and Cubans.
No.
hold
Yeah.
the rabo encendido,
No.
hold on, yeah, it's
Cuban,
different.
Cuban as hell, and it's the real deal. Yeah. So if you ever get a chance, go by there. Yeah.
Now you put me on. You know what's funny? I still go to what's that brewery where you have the events at the unbranded.
Unfortunately, they're selling.
What?
Yeah,
and
unbranded.
that area, because I remember when we met, that you told me that area was like really
Yeah.
coming up.
That area is known as the Hialeah Arts District, right? And so there was a small time period, that short window of time that it showed a lot of promise, but we've seen it become very stagnant and actually decline, in my opinion, right? And it's because of the way that it was done. And I always tell people this, things need to happen organically. Right,
Yeah,
in
you can't
order,
force the
you
moment,
can't
you can't.
force it. Right, they need to happen organically in order to really be sustainable in the long term. What happens there is that many years ago, you had politicians that stood over a map and they drew a line around this area, right, and they called it something. And when they called it something,
Almost like gerrymandering, like, I throw it in, that's it. Like,
so they called this something and they promoted it, right? Because politicians want to get credit for stuff, right? And so
Yeah.
when you promote something, then what happens, right? Serious developers, then they approach those property owners within that Hialeah district and say, hey, I'd like to buy, I'd like to actually make things happen.
because that was residential prior? Or?
No, industrial.
Okay.
But then what happens is that the person that owns the property at that moment, they say, well, hold on there, Nadir. I know you want to build here, but if you want to buy my stuff, it's going to be 3 times the amount now, because you know why? This is called a arts district. So now, when you put the cart before the horse, right, you have these types of issues. So that's why you've never seen any real development happen.
Because
there.
why would they develop it con la gente tan so stingy?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I get what you're saying,
Exactly.
like...
So look at how Wynwood happened, right? It was one owner, pretty much, that ended up owning a large percentage of the properties in that area. And then that person started little by little developing, right?
To the point where now Wynwood is ridiculous.
Exactly.
The amount of development in Wynwood right now is like...
Exactly.
And it's really just like those 5 blocks.
Exactly.
And that's kind of similar to how... Because that district would have been about roughly around the same size.
Probably, maybe a little smaller, a little bit better, but close. But yeah. So unfortunately, now Unbranded is selling. The value of their property has actually exceeded the value of their business. So they're looking to cash out. Yeah.
Nah, place was nice.
The place was very nice.
place was nice.
The place was very nice.
I like it,
One of
yeah.
my favorite places. And anyone that's listening, if you guys want to have a good time, at least before they sell, go visit them.
Yeah. Tundi, is there anything you'd want to leave off with to tell your voters, to tell anybody that might not know you about the experiences you've had as an elected official, or just anything about the future that you see where Hialeah wants to go, or anything you want to just update us on?
Look, I think that Hialeah is changing, right? I think that at the end of the day, Hialeah has always been a hardworking, working class community for a long time, and it will still maintain that fabric, right? But you have to change, right, in order to keep up with everything else around you, right? So I think Hialeah, many people are calling it the Brooklyn of the South. There's a lot of great development, a lot of multifamily workforce housing for young professionals, right? That are being built around mass transit, how we discussed. We want to give those young professionals that might live and work over in downtown or in Brickell, we want to give them an alternative, right? We want to tell them, hey, look, there's this new product of housing, right, that costs you probably a third less of what you're paying today, and you're only a train ride away from your job, right? So we want to be able to promote that. We want folks to come to Hialeah to experience the new entertainment districts that we're developing, right? And it's something new that you won't find in places like Little Havana, in Coral Gables, or in Brickell, right? This is going to be unique to our community. But at the same time, I want to stress that we will preserve our single-family home communities, right? We will make sure that we have inventory there for the folks like myself, right? That say, I want to have a family, right? But I want to have a house. I want to have a yard. I want to have a yard where my kids and my dog can play, you know,
Oh, the
outside.
quality of life.
Right. So and that I think is also the American dream, right? But a lot of folks, you know, came to this country thinking I want to have a house with a backyard where I could do barbecues and enjoy some space
Not
with
if
the
there's
family.
an RV in it, though.
But not if there's an
Not if
RV.
there's an RV in it.
So what I tell folks is keep an eye out for Hialeah, right? Hialeah está de moda, right? Hialeah is a place
Estamos triple M.
is Hialeah is growing. Hialeah has so much potential, and little by little, we're reaching it.
You know what's truly the best piece of development in Hialeah? The Chick-fil-A.
The Chick-fil-A. Well, I don't know if you know
Gables
this.
don't got no Chick-fil-A.
I don't know if you know this though, but we don't have one. We have two, right? And they're both. And the funny thing is that they're both on 49th Street.
Yeah.
So there have been studies that have been done, right? There have been studies that have shown us that certain national brand name businesses, like Home Depot, for example, right, in Hialeah have actually been the highest performing businesses in all of the country, right? And I'll tell you one, for example. We have the Home Depot on Okeechobee y La 112 on 112th. There's a Home Depot there in that little corner.
Not too far from you.
That's one of the highest performing Home Depots in the country. We used to have a Taco Bell on 49th Street. Right? I don't even remember, but unfortunately there were some issues that happened. They were rebuilding it now. That was the highest performing Taco Bell in all of the nation. And so now, listen, there's a reason why now you're starting to see not one but two Chick-fil-A's on the same road,
block.
right? So
Follow
that's
the Chick-fil-A's. That's
follow
what the
the
economy.
Chick-fil-A's. Look, there was I was talking to someone the other day. There's a software called Placer AI. Have you heard of Placer AI?
No, but we actually use a bunch of other AI stuff too.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
but no, not that one.
so Placer AI captures your location through your mobile device, et cetera. So what happens is that they were telling me about it's a restaurant down south called Barbacoa. Is it Barbacoa?
I think I've heard of that. Yeah.
I think it's the same owners that own Finca, whatever. Point, it's down south. Point is that they were able to capture at a certain time frame all the people that were visiting that restaurant. And can you believe that the city where the most people came from to visit the restaurant was the city Hialeah? And so that shows you, right, that there's a need, right? There's a desire, there's a want for entertainment, there's a want for food, for restaurants, for retail, for bars, for music, for entertainment in general within the city Hialeah. All you got to do is just build it.
Develop smart.
Yeah.
Councilman, thank you so much, man.
Oh yeah, thank you, my brother. Appreciate you.